you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. And now here's your host, Rich Barris.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, People's Pundit. This is the merch. And for a black t-shirt, I'll tell you what, even though it's getting hot, it is pretty cozy and pretty comfortable. All right, follow me on Getter at People's Pundit if you're watching there, streaming live. You can also follow me still on Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. But of course, we would very much like everybody to sign up to Rumble as well, where you can find me at the People's Pundit Rumble channel. And while you're there, the best place to follow along with the People's Pundit is on peoplespundit.locals.com. All right. It's an economic day today, plus polling. All right. And more. I will briefly make some remarks on the Sussman case because it is polling related here. I'm not a lawyer. But I will tell you this. Robert Barnes and I have been trying to prove to judges for a long time and to lawmakers and others that the D.C. jurisdiction is irreparably damaged, corrupted. It is a cesspool of entangled interests, rampant ideology, and unfortunately, immense social pressure and bias, social bias. Circles that people run in. Everybody knows each other, as we saw with the Sussman jury. One of the jurors, their daughter played ball with Sussman's daughter. There were a bunch of Hillary Clinton donors. One even donated to the nutcase, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, because we have done this with national cases that have made national headlines, and did some work with the January 6th protesters, though it never got to go in front of a judge. The bottom line, whether it's Kyle Rittenhouse, Michael Brown, especially things about Donald Trump and his inner circle, the DC jury pool is tainted beyond all hope. They are incapable of putting aside their own biases and their own ideological possession to render a verdict that is fair and just. This was essentially a verdict from the jury, not that Sussman wasn't guilty, but basically, what the hell do we care about lying to the FBI? Mm-hmm. Well, they cared when Michael Flynn did it. Mm-hmm. They cared when Roger Stone lied under oath. The same crime. They cared when Jim Comey was going after Martha Stewart. They also happened to think far more than the rest of the country that January 6th protesters were violent insurrectionists, when the rest of the country is not sold on that. They thought Kyle Rittenhouse the worst of the kid. It is on and on and on and on. And especially when it comes to Donald Trump, they are completely blinded by their social pressures and their ideology. It is time. Whether, Democrats will never do it, because for Democrats, they don't care how they get the W. They just want the W. Look, you don't have to be a lawyer to acknowledge that the Durham probe obviously proves Sussman's guilt beyond reasonable doubt. Period. But Democrats are never going to move on this. They don't care what potential risk this poses to the country as a whole, literally the survival of the nation. But Republicans, even as corrupt and stupid as they are in D.C., should care, because we essentially have second-class citizens in this country. Robert is right. Yesterday, the blue checks on Twitter and on cable news were celebrating this acquittal like the Klan celebrated their acquittals in Alabama in the 1950s. There really is no difference. The ends justify the means, and the results are all that matters. There are few things that take down empire in this country, empire in countries, period. Unaffordable housing, unaffordable food, unaffordable energy, a lack of trust in the selection of leaders and the regime credibility in general, a feeling that the system no longer works for a large percentage of people. We basically have every single one of these problems in this country right now. And yet, we believe, because we're Americans, that we're somehow exempt from the tide of history. That we're somehow exempt from the rules of thumb that any historian can draw, the lessons that they can learn from the history of civilization.
How arrogant.
It's incredible hubris. You are living with a false sense of security, and this will one day, unfortunately, lead to political violence, as our polling has shown. People believe it will. You cannot have one side or one half or potentially more of the country draw the conclusion that the system of government that governs them no longer works for them. Because once enough of them infer or draw the conclusion that working within the parameters of the system is useless and futile, they only have one other recourse, and it always ends in bloodshed. So for people to be celebrating this without having a bigger picture, very narrow-minded, short-sighted, is a real testament to why it is time, like Barnes and I have said, it is time. If you're going to take back the House in November, then freaking do something. It is time to recognize that DC is incapable of carrying out their sacred civic duty, and they need a special jurisdiction, especially for politically charged cases. Because one side is playing political lawfare. The other side can't even get clear and cut justice. That's going to end badly. And, you know, a year ago when we did it, maybe it's time to do it again. A year ago when we did it, actually, I think it is time in the next public polling project to ask this question. It's an annual question we ask. I was shocked by the percentage of people, not only who said, yes, it's very likely that this one, our differences are not reconcilable, and it will add in widespread political violence and upheaval. I was not only shocked by that number and how much bipartisan support that number had, but also by the percentage of people who said they prefer it that way. That they actually don't care. They want to bang out. We are living in an era of complete and total failed leadership. They are incapable of rising as prior generations of Americans have done. That's the difference, sadly, that separates this generation and the rest. Past generations eventually always came to the wall, folks, and they said, you know what? Politics aside, we have to rise to meet this challenge for the survival of our nation. We are failing at their task. We just passed Memorial Day. And as Abraham Lincoln said, as he reminded us, and as Ronald Reagan reminded us, there is nothing the living can do or say to repay the debt that we owe the dead in this country who gave their lives for it. We can't hang a flag, make a speech, or anything else to already honor them and in the hope to start or begin to repay that debt. And Abraham Lincoln explained it in Gettysburg, in his Gettysburg Address. All we can do is continue to hope that we're worthy of it and strive to be worthy of it. Every generation before us has at least met the minimum bar here. We have not. We have not. Basic things like this, folks, basic things should never be forgotten. You cannot have a two-tier system of justice. You cannot lose faith and trust in your elections. The highest court in the land cannot be desecrated by ideology and ideological fanatics who think leaking a draft opinion is less damaging than the opinion itself. And yet here we are. And time again, Barnes and I have shown everybody we can show. 30-point differences, 40-point differences. They live in another world. Literally. They're not really, they don't resemble the rest of America at all. Which, by the way, the founding fathers they find to be so stupid and backward, completely anticipated. And would never argue for statehood. For the power center of the country. Yet there are a significant and scary percentage number of people who would do just that. Talk about the tyranny of the minority. Forget about the tyranny of the majority. So I'll bring that up, but it didn't surprise me in the least. Not in the least. Did anybody really hope? Or did anybody really pray? Or did anybody really anticipate that Michael Sussman was going to be held accountable? Despite the report from people like Inspector General Horowitz, despite the finding of somebody who is considered to be a rather credible man in the District of Columbia, Durham, talking about. Barr went so far as to say that the Durham probe has uncovered sedition. He was once upon a time a very respected man on both sides of the aisle. On People's Pundit Daily, when they were going after Barr because it was Trump related, period. I mean, anything you attach Trump to, you're done. We posted decades of comments heralding William Barr as a great man. Just what the country needs, Chuck Schumer once said. But go to work for Donald Trump, uncover stuff that you don't like because you feel it could destroy trust in the federal justice system, which it did. Go against the hive mind of DC in any way, shape, or form, and decades and decades and decades of good reputation goes down the drain. Because that's all that matters. Just the way, by the way, that there could be a figure to this crowd who has committed every sin against their ideology known to man, yet they turn on Donald Trump and all sins are forgiven. Michael Cohen. Countless Republicans, by the way. Mitt Romney, once upon a time, was a gay beater. Remember?
Yeah.
Come on. John McCain was an adulterer. Yet all of these sins can be forgiven for the simple act of betraying Donald Trump. Just as decades and decades of good reputation can be dismantled and wiped away if, God forbid, you're seen as defending Donald Trump.
Preach it.
CNN is worried about the civil rights, the 14th Amendment, 4th Amendment rights, and 14, of potential leakers who literally destroyed trust in the last institution in this country that had majority trust among the public of all parties. That would be the Supreme Court. They're concerned about their privacy rights. But obtaining illegal FISA warrants against Carter Page and George Papadopoulos, so you know they can collect what is called incidental collection to 3 people removed is perfectly fine. Lying to the FISA court to obtain illegal FISA warrants is perfectly acceptable. Tapping Donald Trump's phone without pretext, perfectly acceptable. But investigating the leaker at the Supreme Court, an unforgivable sin. Who is John Durham? John Durham was once Barack Obama's man who went after the CIA for torture. He was well liked and well respected, just like Bill Barr. What's his sin? Rooting out conspiracy and sedition, because that's what it was. But I feel badly for anyone who had hope that this was going to end another way. By the way, I didn't happen to turn it on yesterday, but I wonder who Sean Hannity had on his show last night. TikTok, Sean. It's still ticking and talking over here.
Well, maybe Lindsey Graham will solve it.
Maybe Lindsey Graham is going to get to the bottom of it. Maybe Trey Gowdy, like Jack Posobiec said. That would be great. Let's bring Trey Gowdy back, who couldn't even prosecute Benghazi, for crying out loud. Tick tock, tick tock. No, there was no ticking and no talking. The truth is, a lot of rank and file FBI who actually did have problems with the disgusting cesspool that their bureau was becoming have left. The rest of them are obviously cowards who are too afraid to stand up to the corruption at Main Justice. There is no cavalry coming. Nobody's coming to the rescue. There will be no justice for a duly elected president who was literally the victim of sedition. At home and abroad. At home with the loser who planted a fake conspiracy, which Democrats believed wholeheartedly, by the way, without any evidence whatsoever. And abroad with people like John Kerry doing everything in his power. Get this, think about this for a second. Everything in his power to block a Mideast peace deal. Why? Because they didn't want Donald Trump to get a win. It's something they could never do. They've been promising it since Bill Clinton and Yasser Arafat. But they've never been able to get it done. Donald Trump comes along, and oh my God, he starts to make progress. You better stomp that out. Mm-hmm. What are a few more dead Palestinians? We'll just use them as an excuse to beat on Israel. What are a few more dead Israelis? They shouldn't have been building those settlements. Think about the evil, the depravity that one must have in their heart to carry out seditious acts like that. By the way, you could get banned on any social media network to this very day by citing, I don't know, the True the Vote hearing that we got a shout out with yesterday. But God forbid you ask for similar treatment of those who continue to push the fake Russia hoax. No way, they'll never take action. Hillary Clinton still has her Twitter account. Hillary Clinton still has her home, her adopted home, by the way, in New York State. And frankly, Hillary Clinton still has her freedom. Donald J. Trump really has none of those. Nope. He's lost his online social presence. He's lost his actual native home in New York City, which, by the way, he basically resurrected. You got to be living in your own piss still if it wasn't for Donald Trump. Let's get a real dose of reality here. Even his father, who was a developer in Queens, had abandoned Manhattan because liberals ran into a dumpster. Nobody wanted to invest there. That's how Donald Trump became the man and the businessman that he was. He was the only one who still saw value in the dump that was called Manhattan. You wouldn't have an ice skating rink right now. It would be a muddy puddle for homeless and bums and drug addicts to sleep in if it wasn't for Donald Trump. Yet Hillary Clinton still has her home in her adopted state of New York.
Must be nice.
While Donald Trump does not in his native state of New York. He said yesterday he's been more investigated than somebody. It made me laugh. Or the other day, and I just read it yesterday. But it's true. And there has been nothing. And yet Hillary Clinton, literally her own campaign manager under oath, throws her under the bus in such a damning revelation that if it was Donald Trump, the next day he'd be in handcuffs. The next day. And nothing happens. So again, I feel sorry for those who were duped by people like Sean Hannity and his panel of experts and whatever. There was never going to be any justice for these people.
Well, Hannity said they're all going to be in orange jumpsuits.
That's right. Yeah, I know. Michael Flynn was never getting his home back. Over 3 decades, and believe me, I have criticized the hell out of Michael Flynn. First of all, you were talking stupid. All right. Second of all, how could you think the FBI, after all the years in military and in military intelligence, how could you believe the FBI were the good guys? How did you not know to get a lawyer immediately? Do you have a few minutes? I don't know. Let me call my lawyer. Never speak to a Fed ever without a lawyer. Ever. Don't even speak to a cop without a lawyer. This idea or something, he believed they were the good guys. Unbelievable. But still, more than 3 decades of his life, this man devoted in the service of this country. And he gets his only family home taken away from him. But Hillary Clinton still has hers. So that is the system we live in. And it's dangerous. And again, I can actually prove that this jurisdiction has to be abolished. And especially when it comes to politically charged cases, there needs to be, Congress needs to start looking at solutions, the creation, the establishment of an independent, outside jurisdiction to handle these cases. Otherwise, this will continue and eventually the powder keg will get lit. If the fuse hasn't already been lit already and it's just very long. I'm not sure. I pray every day it has not been. All right. Now let's get back to the other thing that destroys empire. Bad economics. I got to play this video. It's about a minute long. And then we'll come back and we'll look at some of the economic indicators. Okay?
Is it a mistake, Madam Secretary, to downplay this inflation risk? Did that contribute to the problems we're all seeing right now?
Well, look, I think I was wrong then about the path that inflation would take. As I mentioned, there have been unanticipated and large shocks to the economy that have boosted energy and food prices and supply bottlenecks that have affected our economy badly that I at the time didn't fully understand. But we recognize that now. The Federal Reserve is taking the steps that it needs to take. It's up to them to decide what to do. And for our part, President Biden is focused on supplementing what the Fed does with actions we can take.
Hat tip Newsbusters, you stupid imbecile. What other reaction could you have? The sooner the American people realize that most experts are really stupid, and most of them are just political hacks, the better off we'll all be. This woman with half her foot in the grave has no business directing monetary policy in this country. Do you sleep during the day, Janet? Do you need a nappy poo? Were you asleep when they taught you about supply chains? This is the moron they put in charge of monetary policy. You didn't know that shutting down commerce in a country by force was going to cause a supply chain issue? A bottleneck? Can you read, Janet? Do you actually review economic indicators? Or you just have some people come in and wipe your ass for you every day and tell you what they say? A simpleton with 6th grade level math skills could have read the ISM panel and realized it was going to cause a bottleneck. This is incredible because I've been saying for over a year, almost 2 years now, none of this was inevitable. None of it. Joe Biden won the election. That's what happened. Or Joe Biden is in the presidency. That's what happened. This would not have gone this way under Donald Trump if you read the panels, because you would have saw industry had more confidence in his ability to ramp the economy back up. They had no confidence in Joe Biden's. And in fact, constantly worried that one person in D.C. would get a sniffle and they would shut it all down again. Like Gavin Newsom. Gallup's Economic Confidence Index is the lowest it's been since the Great Recession, when it was negative 70 plus. It is now negative nearly 50. Only 20% said they had a positive view of current business conditions. Looks like we're not alone, folks, because in order to get the numbers that we got for the Registered Voter Economic Confidence Index, as you know, that's what we would have had to see ourselves. And actually, I shall share it and pull it up as we speak. Let me just make sure I have the right crosstab, because everybody now is really close. As usual, the Public Polling Project leads the way. As usual, the Public Polling Project publishes results that are then followed by basically everybody else. All right. And actually, I'll make it bigger here. Here we go. 20% told Gallup they only have a positive view of current business conditions, economic conditions. And in fact, we had 18.6. The Consumer Confidence Board this month, 21.1% of consumers said business conditions were currently good. 20.7% of consumers said business conditions were bad. We were much closer to Gallup. Our negative is 42.8, as is Gallup in the 40s. Gallup does a net. We do a relative value, like the Consumer Confidence Index. The difference between us and them is we do not use 1985 as a baseline, and we only ask voters, not all consumers. And it goes on and on and on and on. What about future conditions? And by the way, the Economic Confidence Index for Gallup was negative 45, okay? And they have a little bit difference in how they ask it. Only 14% rated the economy as excellent or good, while 85% said the economic conditions were poor or only fair. Asked about the future, 20% said they would be better, while 75% said they were getting worse. When we asked about expectations for current business conditions, only 23.3% said that they expected the economy to get better, while 44.1% said within the next 6 months they would be worse. And how do we ask this? Expectations regarding business conditions 6 months from now. What really did it this month was the total family income sub-indicator of the index. This is usually much higher than current business conditions, current employment conditions, expected business conditions, expected employment conditions. This is usually much higher. Expectations regarding total family income 6 months from now, only 21.9% said they had a positive outlook. 47.4% had a negative opinion. And that's why, obviously, as you can see, clear as day, cost of living is by far and away the most important voting issue for midterm voters. By the way, we will have a peek today at the 2024 rematches, which is a totally different weighting variable. All right. Primary voters and midterm election voters are different than general election presidential cycle voters. So we will have a peek at that. Now we'll show you how badly the Democratic bench is currently. And I see other people come out with, Trump +2s to 4s and Biden +2s, while people like Rasmussen and ourselves have shown much wider races. And I'll read to you the weighting variables to show you how much leeway you must give the Democratic bench in order to make the race closer. This is coming from a pollster who never had Donald Trump leading nationally in 2020. Never. Our polling always showed Donald Trump down. We just showed it was a much closer race, and indeed, we were right. The others were wrong. You cannot have a president in the 30s and expect him to win re-election. You cannot have a president in the 30s and expect his party to do well in the midterm elections. It has never happened, folks. Where are these D+2s and 6s coming from? It has never happened. Right track, wrong track, which is also rather predictive, is absolutely abhorrent right now, as you all know, because we went over it last week. And it's not getting any better. Construction spending this month. Forecast range from a low of -0.1 to a high of 0.7. The consensus was for a 0.4 of a percentage point gain in construction spending. It only rose by 0.2. So construction spending rose by half the forecasted amount this month. The JOLTS report. This is the worst because people aren't going back to work. It was different under Donald Trump because you could see those job openings were high, but that the created jobs were keeping pace with it, and it was like those job openings weren't openings that were for an extended period of time. They were gobbled up. They were gobbled up. This month, it actually hit the consensus. Can't argue with that. But it was 11.4, the consensus, and that's what it came in at. Right? The prior was 11.6, which was revised to 11.86, so 11.9 almost. You can't tout record job openings because nobody's getting a job. You can't tout record job openings when you have job reports that are consistently weaker than the forecasts. That simply means nobody wants to go back to work. That's what that means.
Why would you if you're getting paid more to stay at home?
When you have a labor force participation that refuses to rise, you're not building a stronger, tighter labor market. Unemployment claims are almost pointless at this point because so many people have ran out of them and just sat on their butts. That's the truth of it. The Mortgage Bankers Association Mortgage Application Index fell by 2.3%. That's the composite. The Purchase Index fell by 0.6, and the refinance fell by -5.4. Of course, because the Fed is a one-trick pony when it comes to inflation. Thank you, half-dead Janet Yellen, for not seeing this coming. But you can't refinance your house at a higher rate, can you? It's not worth it, right? I'm not saying that, they had no other choice. They waited too damn long to raise the rates. And they would have been able to raise them at a much faster pace, again, because none of this was inevitable, if Joe Biden wasn't the president. That is not a subjective statement. That is an objective statement. The economy was rebounding. They killed it. And then they exacerbated it. Sentiment means everything. And if producers are afraid to build up their business inventories because they're afraid that there's going to be another lockdown, for instance, then they will hold off on CapEx. They will hold off on building up those inventories. It will cause a demand crisis. There will not be enough supply to meet demand. Then when the demand ramps up, they feel a little bit like better. They have to do it. They ramp up business inventories at an unsustainable rate of risk that risks overheating. And it creates a bottleneck. Especially when you have a Democratic administration that will do nothing about union protests. Especially when you have a transportation secretary who will go on maternity leave, even though he's a man, when there are miles and miles and miles of cargo ships outside the ports of Los Angeles and Newark and New York. All of this exacerbated. The Fed, again, is a one-trick pony. You raise rates, doesn't matter. If you kill oil production, is it going to help the CPI? Does it matter when you get into conflicts with Russia and actually somehow improve their standing with their currency, claiming that you'll collapse it in a week? Now, you don't have the oil to sell Germany. You don't have the oil to sell to other so-called allies who are going to go behind your back or right out in the open because they don't care, it's Joe Biden, and buy oil from the so-called enemy anyway. Do we need to pull up the chart of the Russian ruble against the dollar? Again, do we need to? If that doesn't display or illustrate in plain view the idiocy of this policy, then you can't be helped. You cannot be helped. I'm sorry. You're ideologically possessed. Please make your way to the nearest church and get that handled.
Exercise.
And I mean, on and on. There's a lot. I mean, we're coming up on 20 to 1 here.
You did get sacked, by the way, but you came back.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, none of this is great. I mean, consumers' assessment of the job market were less positive. 51.8% in the Conference Board's Consumer Confidence Index. 51.8% of consumers said jobs were plentiful, which is down from 54.8. That's funny because our index of the labor market fell quite a bit. 12.5% of consumers said jobs are, quote, hard to get. That's up from 10.1. I mean, you can really it's unbelievable how easy you can see this. I'm going to share this image. And I mean, it's so obvious. I just don't know how any thinking person couldn't see what this means to you. Look at this. By the way, everybody, let's talk about unfair advantages that, like we were talking about earlier in the first segment. You see that little gray band that starts in April of 2020? That's the shutdown. That is the government-induced recession. Ladies and gentlemen, everywhere you see this graphic, these so-called nonpartisan groups that do these economic indicators, the St. Louis Fed, which does every economic indicator. I remember when we at People's Pundit Daily, because the definition of a recession mattered to us, it was clear that the recession was over. It was a temporary, artificial recession. Yet they kept that damn band gray until the election. Once that was done and decided, they retroactively ended this recession right when People's Pundit Daily stopped doing it. The crap we got on our graphics from showing that recession was over was unbelievable. Unbelievable. You can see the temporary disruption in the Consumer Confidence Index, which is the present situation and expectations index, just like the Registered Voter Economic Confidence Index has it. All right. You can see the convergence here, which I don't know how they are not converged at this point. But you can see it did happen during the shutdown, which is bad. That's why I said this time, this month, we're going to look back on this month and we're going to see that how bad that mattered. Because they are going to declare a recession. Mm-hmm. It's going to happen.
It's inevitable.
The next quarter is not going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So in the end, you can see it's starting to recover. And in fact, basically did recover. Joe Biden takes the reins in January and it begins to collapse. It holds steady for a little bit, ticks back up slightly, and collapses again. This is on the way down again, believe me. It's not just what people are telling me in the Registered Voter Economic Confidence Index. It is the economic indicators themselves. And of course, the MBA survey looked like that this week. Lauren June told us it's not first-time buyers. It's not even normal home buyers who are making up large percentages of these mortgages anymore. These are people with a lot of money and money managers, wrapping them up into other securities. The truth is, most working families, once the Fed did pull the trigger, because inflation rose so quickly, and because job prospects are what they are, and because wages are not keeping up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The minute they moved that interest rate and they hiked that rate, they priced most working families out of the housing market. What do I mean by that? If you have, let's say, a bank, you go to the bank and you ask for a home. I need a mortgage. I want to buy this home. Especially if you're not a first-time home buyer. During times when they tighten lending, they'll increase the minimum requirement for a credit score. And they will obviously look at what the interest rates are to see how much that impacts your monthly mortgage payment. Once they increased rates, and the average went from about 3% to over 4%, and that meant a higher payment on the mortgage. So if you were able, let's say, with a 650 credit score, to go to a bank you have which is not, a fantastic credit score, it's not horrible. If you were able to go to the bank that you have been banking out for a long time, you have a relationship with them, and they said, yeah, if you got 650 or better, especially if you're a first-time buyer, maybe you're doing a VA loan, we'll definitely give you that loan at 2.89. We'll definitely give you that loan at 3.15, at 3.275. Once it got to 4+, it was no longer affordable for the applicants. It raised the price of their mortgage significantly. Or it raised the payment, the monthly payment, significantly. And it priced them out. So now banks have to say, actually, I need a 720. And instead of $3,000 a month or $4,000 a month income, I'm going to need to see 2 years of like $5,000 or better. The American dream is home ownership. And that's why, in turn, people who buy rental properties, whatever it may be, if they don't own them outright, they're going to raise rent. Without a doubt. Because they have to keep up. They didn't purchase that building 3 months ago at the same interest rate that they would have purchased it 2.5 years ago. So now instead of their monthly mortgage payment being $1,480, let's say, they're now paying like $1,850, something like that. Well, guess what? Your rent is no longer $2,000. Your rent is now $2,500, $2,600 higher. It's not their fault. They have to pay the mortgage. They have to make sure that something that goes wrong with the property, they can pay for. And that's a great question. Jay Patel asked, this is a great question. People on government subsidies, a la SNAP, which is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, otherwise known as food stamps. Housing assistance, for instance, for veterans like HUD-VASH, otherwise known to everyone else as Section 8. Does inflation affect them? That is a fantastic question, because inflation, in fact, hurts working people the most, but also people who are not thriving, but just trying to survive off of government benefits. And I will plug his video, because that's a fantastic video, and we will watch it before the end of this segment. I agree, Laura. Yes, it does, because just like somebody who has veteran benefits or somebody has a Social Security benefit, whatever it may be, just like, they receive an annual COLA increase if they do, it's meant to keep pace with inflation. But the truth of the matter is, it definitely does not. It is never a large enough rate to keep pace with inflation. So they'll get a little bit more for their voucher for Section 8. They'll get a little bit more if they're veterans for HUD-VASH. They'll get a little bit more for food stamps, right? But it's not enough to keep up with the pace of inflation. And if you could find that, I know we did I see the energy one, Laura, but if you could see, and that was a couple of days ago, if you could find his, because I know he does them on Getter too.
Yeah,
If you could find the one on housing, I know I saw it. It was very
It
good.
was very detailed too. So
But the energy one also is worth playing if we can't find that. Laura wants me to play something for you guys, and it is worth playing, I'll tell you, because it says a lot. It really does. All right. So, I mean, that's where we're at. That's a really, really good question. And the answer, unfortunately, is no. It's not. You will not get a significant bump, enough so that, basically it's going to keep up with that. It's going to hurt you quite a bit. And you'll have to figure out what else you're going to do, and you'll have to go for there. So basically, and also, Jay, I don't know what the Bubba Effect means. So if you clarify on that, then let me know. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I could play the gas one, Laura, because I do see that one, because that also matters. We're going into the summer driving season. I was just talking to somebody out in California. In parts of the area, it's still above $6, but in the northern part of the district, it has hit $7. All right, so you don't, what you're seeing right now, we just hit Memorial Day, and there's always a lot more demand on the Memorial Day weekend for gas and energy. And it will inevitably, as it always does, raise the price. It does. That's just the way it goes. We haven't even begun. It is now June 1st. Give it some time, because we are going to see even higher gas prices at the pump. It's just no doubt about it. Which means we're going to see higher food prices, because how do they get food back and forth? Trucks. What powers a truck? So obviously that will impact demand, which means it will obviously lead to higher costs. How much? Let's hope not that much. Let's hope and pray. Although I don't know that anybody could with a straight face tell you there won't be a significant increase, especially if this crap in Ukraine keeps up. That's just a reality. All right, so I'm going to, while Laura's waiting for the housing one, I'm going to play this one because we're on gas here. And by the way, again, that's why the Fed really is a one-trick pony, folks. A one-trick pony. There is really nothing they can do at this point to roll back inflation. They can't. All right, anyway, Steve Cortez did a really good video on gas prices, energy in general. He does his chalk talks. You should check them out. They're really cool.
and he's very detailed.
He's very detailed. Yep.
It's very interesting.
This is, yeah, because, this is what Steve did. He was money, So he's definitely worth listening to. You should be able to hear it. If you can't, yell at me. But here we go. And if Laura finds the housing one, we'll definitely play that too. It may just be on Getter, actually, Laura. I don't know. But I did see it, and that speaks to what I was talking about before. Average people are being priced out of the housing market. The housing market is the American dream. That is the American dream. Home ownership. All right.
Patriots, unfortunately, more terrible economic news out today on inflation. The PCE gauge is just a tick off of 40-year highs. And in all likelihood, inflation is going to get worse. Why? Because of the situation in energy. Let's look at natural gas prices under Joe Biden and the Chalk Talk, brought to you by Getter. Natural gas prices since Biden took office have more than tripled, from $2.50 to almost $9. Now, you might think of natural gas primarily in heating your home in the winter, and it does do that, but also about 40% of American electricity is generated from natural gas. So that means as the temperatures heat up now into summer, many Americans are going to face staggering home power bills. According to Barclays, the average home electricity bill last year, $122 a month. They project for this year, $172 per month, $50 extra. And for people who live in hot parts of the country, it's going to easily be double that. These are the real world consequences of the Biden, Pelosi, McConnell inflation explosion.
And that to me is absolutely incredible, but I have seen it actually already. I don't know about you guys, but we have natural gas, and I think that's why we're seeing some of the stuff. By the way, a lot of homes in the Northeast still have oil tanks. Of course, a lot of stuff has changed over the years, but definitely working class people that have older homes, maybe they rent or maybe they've had the mortgage for many years and they haven't converted it yet to natural gas or propane or something else. They have oil tanks that are literally going to cost more than double to fill this coming winter than it did the prior winter. And by the way, prior winter cost double than what it did the prior winter. So this is an astonishing amount of money that people are not used to paying. Even our natural gas bill, we can see a very clear increase in ours. And I'm curious to see your thoughts on whether or not you see an increase in yours. Well, when we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit about more in depth because I think it's important. We have this June calendar coming. You would be shocked to find out that the Supreme Court is expected to decide, make rulings on two very important issues, two very important cases that are very important issues that just so happen to be media obsessed right now. Gun cases they're expected to expand gun rights if you take what they were saying from their oral arguments. And they're also expected, of course, to overturn Roe v. Wade and Casey. All right. Don't you think it's at all a little bit coincidental that that is all the media can find to talk about in their 24-hour news cycle these days? By the way, I absolutely stand by what I said. Absolutely stand by what I said. The media induced the mass shooting in Texas, and they are to blame for it. They are the contagion. Everybody knows it. The data has been saying it for years. The FBI and other law enforcement agencies have been begging them for years not to react the way they reacted when the Buffalo event took place. Yet they cannot help themselves because all they care about is destroying the Second Amendment, and your children are expendable to them. And so are mine. They induced this mass shooting in Texas. Period. End of story. And yet that's all they can talk about. That's all they can talk. That and abortion. And we're going to take a real deep dive. We were talking about with Frank, and quite frankly, if you have not seen our Mondays once a month interviews together, I love going on Frank's show. Frank is a great show. Quacky guy, man. He's hilarious. I love him. And we always have great conversations. And we had this discussion last night, but we didn't show the numbers. And Locals has had it for a while, but I want to get into it in a little bit more detail today because every day they bring up myths. They're myths. So it's almost like every day you have to spend a little bit of time combating those myths that's basically our role here. By the way, yes, I did see your comments and I did see the AP report on Dominion voting machines. Listen, everybody knows I did not focus on the machines. I was very concerned about the policy of mass balloting when you reduce verification procedures and you don't clean the voter rolls. Because, say it with me now, folks, remember the slogan, being registered to vote in the United States of America is not the same as being eligible to vote in the United States of America. But yes, the AP reported yesterday, amazingly, that the Biden administration has been warned about Dominion voting machines and other hackable systems, election systems that we have that are prevalent in this country. And in fact, before Mike Lindell was erased on history, Democrats made many of the same arguments that Mike Lindell made. That's just a fact. And for those of you on the thread who said Hillary Clinton did not contest it, you are absolutely wrong. Hillary Clinton did, in fact, jump on Jill Stein's recount effort. It was only when they began to find problems in Michigan, specifically Wayne County, that she bailed off the Stein train for the recount because it was benefiting Donald Trump. She bailed and then just pivoted right into ridiculous, unproven conspiracy theories that Vladimir Putin somehow stole the election from Donald Trump. And don't give me this crap that she didn't contest it, because she spent every waking minute she had in public talking about how she couldn't possibly have lost. It must have been Vladimir Putin. This is a load of crap. And intellectually, you're selling yourself short. Maybe you didn't know that about the Stein recount, but I just told you, and you know it from this point going forward. She absolutely did. She used Jill Stein because she didn't want her face to be the face of the effort. Why? She didn't want to be like Al Gore. Take a hint, Dave McCormick, by the way. You can't just count the 12 counties you want to count. My God, here we are, 22 years later, after the embarrassment we had in Florida. Al Gore wanted to only count favorable counties for him. Bush v. Gore happens, puts a stop to it, and every presidential candidate that has a close election, therefore, knows we don't want to look like Al Gore, because Al Gore, that election may have been decided by 500 votes, not at the time. Even though the Washington Post found in their recount that they wasted millions of dollars on that, Bush actually probably won the state of Florida by a larger margin. Nobody wanted to be Al Gore, a sore Gore, a Gore loser. Remember those sayings? They eventually just said, you know what, Al, I even voted for you, but it's time to get the hell lost. Hillary was a little bit smarter than that. She decided, I'm not going to be the face of the Gore loser. All right. Okay, let me get to Jay's follow-up here before the break. Anyway, that's what Dave McCormick actually wants to do in the state of Pennsylvania. I kid you not. So, you know what, Pennsylvania? Honestly, shame on you. Shame on you for not correcting anything. And I think, sadly, 22 years later, we're past the ability. This is why I said we're in the era of no statesmen. We're in the era of leaders who fail to rise to meet the challenges of our day that really are the main challenges in our period, unlike other generations before us. Here's a perfect example. 22 years ago, whether you were a Democrat or a Republican, you never wanted to be the focus of the embarrassment that was the hanging Chad. That was the locking of doors in Miami-Dade, to where Republicans had to shoulder block them down in front of the cameras. So it didn't matter what party you were in. You came to the table and you said, we are going to reform our election process so this never happens again. Why? You know what? We like quick resolutions, but also we don't want to be embarrassed. Whatever good we may have gotten out of it by finding 600 votes for Al Gore, it's not worth the embarrassment, and it's not worth the integrity of the entire election process. I don't believe that's even possible today. In fact, not only won't Democrats come to the table, but Republicans are too cowardly to even stand together on it. And somebody asked me, what can you do? What can we do about this? I'm in Pennsylvania. This is ridiculous. What can we do about it? The answer is simple. Elect somebody else. Elect somebody else, and or make your voice heard. Pick up the phone. Have your friends pick up the phone. Call them nonstop. Send them emails nonstop. Politicians only respond to two things: public pressure and the very real threat of losing.
Do your civic duty.
Do your civic duty.
Can't point fingers all the time. Gotta look in the mirror.
The Bubba Effect, as defined by Jay. People feel they've been pushed over the edge by an overbearing government or force. 2, someone responds with violence. This is what I worry about every day, Jay. Every day. And you know what I worry about? Something like setting it off. They have built an unscalable wall around the Supreme Court because the FBI and everybody's getting, unlike January 6th, they're getting very real intelligence of an organized effort, an organized attack, like a real attack. They will attempt to burn the Supreme Court down. Catherine Herridge at CBS News has done some really good reporting on this. These are Planned Parenthood funded groups who intend to do real damage and harm to lawmakers and to public property, to national monuments, to national buildings. I mean, our government buildings. Legislative and judicial branches. So they were forced to build walls, put out, all of this barricades. And what I worry about, Jay, is the next time there's an event like that, and then the right looks at it, because guess what? They won't be charged with sedition. Or, since nobody really was, except for the Proud Boys, and it's a stupid charge, they're not going to be charged even with felony trespassing and get 5 years in jail. Like they gave to the face of January 6th, that poor guy in the Viking outfit. They're not going to shoot an unarmed protester like they shot Ashley Babbitt. But they will do serious damage to something the side holds dear. And once that happens without repercussions, it's going to be go time. Eventually, it will happen. We are not exempt from history. We're special. American exceptionalism is real, or at least what the principles we are founded on are. I have no qualms about stating point blank in the camera that I don't think we are worthy of that exceptionalism that was built and came before us. I don't. I think we're a sad-ass excuse for the descendants of the founders and builders of this country. That's what I think. That's my personal opinion. And I don't really care who's offended by it. And I think this is eventually inevitable. If this doesn't get course corrected, unfortunately, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure. You know what? I think, Chuck, we're going to get back to that when we come back from the break. We'll do abortion, then we'll talk about 2024, because I think maybe I will add Michelle Obama. However, I have to be honest with you. I've seen stuff like this before. How could I put this without getting in trouble? I told you Kamala was not going to be liked. I feel like Michelle Obama has a lot of characteristics and traits that Kamala has. And no matter how much you try to smooth their rough edges, if the media tries to smooth over their rough edges, they're going to come through. Did you see Michelle Obama's speech at the DNC? Yeah, she was a nasty. Look, remember Trump said that was not an accident. It's just a nasty woman. Mm-hmm. Hillary Clinton was never liked as the first lady. She was never liked until some women felt sympathy for her when she had to endure publicly infidelity allegations against her husband. There was some sympathy stuff there. During the Obama administration, when she was very good at just kind of staying low, not letting her scandals get exposed, like Benghazi, good job, Trey Gowdy, you're incompetent. It's smoking gun email, Trey. For crying out loud, to a daughter. You're incompetent, man. You're a sad-ass excuse for a prosecutor. Anyway, you have all of this going on, and she just kind of was below the radar, traveled a lot. So it looked like she was being person, whatever the now statesman like. And her favorability rating on Gallup actually went very high. Very high. But then the focus and the spotlight went on her again. And the country came once again to know Hillary Clinton. And they did not like her. The country does not like nasty women. Nope. They don't. Why? Hey, it's not a misogyny thing, so take that and stick it up your butt. Women don't like nasty women.
Never mind.
And Kamala Harris, I'll tell you what, I knew she was dead in the water when we were polling Florida, the Democratic nomination in Florida. She had just accused Joe Biden of being a part of the racist school busing, which he was, along with segregation in schools. He was. But, she took the attack way too far. So, ridiculous. And then tried to play, that little girl was me, Joe. Remember that? Yeah. Democratic women vomited on into their laps. And she completely collapsed in the state of Florida. So I will add her because you will see, and I haven't added leaners yet, but you will see all of these Democrats are in the 30s without leaners against Donald Trump. And Joe Biden, for better or for worse, is the most viable. He is the most viable against Donald Trump. A rematch with Hillary Clinton is interesting, but people like Pete Buttigieg, he has no prayer. Elizabeth Warren, no prayer. Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton are kind of like, it really depends on the electorate, but they're kind of close to the kind of run that they give for Donald Trump. But in the end, he tops him. And look, folks, Joe Biden, sitting president, has a hard time getting to 40%. But you'll see that after the break. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Follow me on Getter, the Twitter killer, at People's Pundit. And you can still follow me on Twitter, at People's_Pundit. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to give us a little like if you like the video. We'd appreciate it. But hit the subscription button, subscribe. That'll let you know when we're going, the notification button will let you know when we're going to go live. A little bell. Well, we definitely are encouraging everybody to sign up on Rumble. All right, which is connected to Locals, the best place to follow me. peoplespundit.locals.com. By the way, two things real quick, shout outs real quick. The public polling project, the new form is up. Somebody had asked me about that last show. I did put it up after the show, but if I don't tell you again, people don't know. But if you want to support the public polling project to get back in the field as soon as possible, again, which we're trying to do, you can do so at bigdatapoll.com/public polling project. The links are always in the description. I had an incredible demo. I would very much like to expand how we display the results of the public polling project. It means more money. But it is what it is. We're growing on Locals, and I've been looking into it. We had a demo with something called Matline. You guys should check it out. I've been dying to show you on a map, not just participation, distribution by region, stuff like that, but to be able to actually hover over where these voters took the survey and then see their answer on all the survey questions. I'm dying to do that. I initially went to high charts because they have high maps. Unfortunately, it was just too slow. No matter what I could do, not caching, not Cloudflare, nothing would speed it up. So I couldn't get it to be a viable option. If somebody has a suggestion, I'm open to it. But I could not figure it out. Also, what's the other one? Crunch.io. If they can figure out how to make it so we can display the results publicly for you guys, I do think Crunch.io, which is not cheap, is worth it because we'll be able to do some embeds. But if you could just Google it and see how survey data is displayed in Crunch.io, it's amazing. It's normally for people who are showing things to clients privately, and it's like private dashboards, right? I need it to display publicly. And I love MarketSite. The weighting variables are really the kicker for MarketSite, but Crunch.io can also do weighting variables, and they save me the time of doing sampling errors for subgroups, which would be amazing. So it's not, okay, the sampling error is 2.1%, 95 confidence interval. But what about for whites? What about for Black African-American voters? What about for Hispanic voters? What about for Asian voters? What about for men? What about for women? What about 18 to 29, 30, 44, et cetera, et cetera? It does it all for me. And that would make my life a lot simpler. So if we could raise the money to do it, I'm down. Let's do it. All right. But also, too, the crux here is that they really need to have a satisfactory solution to make it public. Because after all, this is the public polling project. All right. But we're always on the hunt for new tools. If you have suggestions, Let me know. If you're a vendor and you're listening to me right now and you think you got something I'd like, pop me an email. Go to bigdatapoll.com, hit the contact, and it will forward it to me. I'd be interested in seeing it. All right. All right. With that in mind, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Special thanks always to the, not a commercial break, a theme song break. Special thanks always to the Bowen Band. We'll be back in 2 minutes and 46 seconds.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. And take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right, we're back inside the numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, People's Pundit. Follow me on Getter at People's Pundit. Follow me on Twitter at People's_Pundit. And don't forget to like the video if you like it watching on YouTube. And subscribe. Hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. But of course, we're imploring everyone to sign up to Rumble at the People's Pundit Rumble channel, where you can find the link to the Locals community. That is peoplespundit.locals.com. All right. Which is where, by the way, Locals, if you've noticed, I am creating a new crosstab for you for these 2024 hypothetical matchups. We will look at Biden, and everybody else will essentially have to wait until you get a look at it first. But there's enough. Believe me, there's only 45 minutes, and we have the abortion stuff we got to go over, and then we have the 2024 matchups to go over. The bottom line is you will see that Donald Trump has essentially lost no support. In fact, would probably gain it because of the undecideds. All right. That is because you simply have people who voted for Joe Biden saying they would vote for Donald Trump. It's that simple. You also have more Democrats than Republicans saying they would choose a third-party candidate. You have Democratic groups that say they would choose a third-party candidate. And we're going to show that to you very soon. All right. Where is party detail, by the way? How did that escape me? Oh, because it's under political demographic identification, not under demographics. We separate them. The truth is, it's rather different now, isn't it? Right? Political identification is political identification. It is technically, I guess you could say, a demographic, but what'll strike you is obviously that Donald Trump, it's not just that little crossover, that third-party vote that went for Joe Biden. I can't stress this enough. That third-party vote that went for Joe Biden that the media told you was the pivotal vote that gave Joe Biden the margin in several battleground states. Those voters who didn't vote for Hillary Clinton because they voted for either Gary Johnson or Jill Stein or whatever it may be, these voters are done with Joe Biden. They approve of him in the 20% range. And against Donald Trump, there's still a lot that choose a third-party candidate, 25%. But now 36% choose Donald Trump, just about 20% choose Joe Biden. Among true independents, Trump has about now a 20-point lead, which is almost insurmountable. Joe Biden keeps about 81% of Democrats. That is it. Donald Trump is now taking almost 10%. And Republicans would back Trump 86, with only 6% of Joe Biden voters, 6% of Republicans backing Joe Biden. That is a big part of the change. There were some Republicans that voted for Joe Biden that now tell us they would vote for Donald Trump. Quite a bit, actually. And there are obviously independents, even though 21% say they're undecided or would go with a third party. They're still backing Donald Trump 46-25 over Joe Biden. So people are like, oh my God, how could he be so low? He's a sitting president. Only 20-something% of independents approve of the job Joe Biden's doing. That's why I honestly, when I see some of these other polls that have Biden in the high 40s, yet somehow have his approval at 38, folks, that's unheard of. A president gets often a little bit more than his approval rating. And in fact, in this poll, that's what he's doing. We had him at a record low, 37%. He's getting a little bit more than that. That's it. And Donald Trump held his vote. And again, more than held it, is absolutely likely to add to it. I mean, you have that's funny.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Well, almost Republicans are almost completely decided. Democrats, they're both around like 2 to 4% undecided, not much at all. But if independents are breaking for Donald Trump, it's such a big margin. Obviously, when those independents decide or choose not to go with a third party, which often happens, we're this far out. That's another thing that's important to remember. The phenomena that is this large, what we're seeing right now, that is this large third-party vote is not Biden or Trump related, at least not in our polling. It is related wholly to the fact that we are still so far away from the election. All right. I was very interested to see that myself. Is it possible that, oh my God, Trump's killing Hillary. Is it possible that, I got to take that out because that's for locals. But I just wanted to say, is it possible that, some of these people obviously do vote for third parties? Of course it is. But in the end, what we traditionally see is that third party candidates' vote shares fall as time goes on. And in fact, we did see that in 2016, even though we did not see it in 2020. We never did see that high of a vote share to start with for third-party candidates. 3 to 5%, generally speaking, that's what we saw in our polling, and that's what happened. 3% roughly. Okay, let's see if I can actually find. There it is. And just to show people how it can collapse over time, I will show them you're going to see the back end, but of 2016. Let me share this with you guys so you understand what I'm saying. It is more common than not. And so I think 2020, just became more of the norm, but it never really had that high share to begin with. Whereas when there's a significant third party candidate or multiple significant third party candidates, you will see them get that share. Ron Johnson or Gary Johnson, I was calling Ron Johnson, was polling between like 10% at one point, 9 in our polling. He dipped quite a bit as people started to decide. What happened here in our poll, 2 things happened. One, because we did have Trump edge Clinton out a little bit in the end. 1, a last-minute break for Johnson. And 2, a simple waiting issue. We waited California for its traditional, or the West, but California obviously disproportionately has an impact on that. We weighted it for a more traditional turnout when, in fact, 2016 really showed the disparity for the first time. If you go back to like 04, Bush and Kerry, Kerry did not win California by 30 points, folks. I mean, it was double digits typically, but 10 points, 15 points. With the advent of Barack Obama in 08, California really exploded for Democrats. And then you had more people out migration. We've been over this before. The people that were more favorable to Republicans basically abandoned California and went to Texas, went to Nevada, went to Arizona, went to even Florida and Washington and Oregon. All right. Those are the highest. And some of them went obviously elsewhere, but those we saw when we polled Arizona were quite consistent with some of the census records, data that we've seen. But this is very typical of what we've seen. So if you were to combine Jill Stein and Gary Johnson right around here, okay, you're looking at 14% of the vote. So it's really not going to be a surprise when we see that there's third party support here. It's fallen. Do you remember we were at like 16% at one point? It's fallen from that to 11. But I also want to tell you about the difference in the weighting variables, and I will change them live to show you how it can impact, how turnout alone can impact, the outcome of the election, obviously. One thing real quick before we go is that somebody did bring up Cortez. We were talking about his video and the two I's, inflation and immigration. He said will dominate this election. I do want to point something out real quick on most important issues, which I brought up before, but I didn't show it completely here. There have been these third tier issues, depending on news coverage, that have kind of risen up to like fourth place. This month, it's abortion, all right, at 7.5%. Definitely driven by pro-choice Democrats, but they were going to vote anyway, is always my point here, all right? They just went from national security and foreign policy last month, which was around 7 to 8, 9%, right? 7-9% range. They just left that because they were Russia, and now they went to abortion. These are people, like I have said when I talk about the lesson of 2020, what I really wanted to know is whether Democrats would have the ability to declare independence from the media and their party, the way Republicans did in 2016, to pick a nominee. The answer was clearly no. They are very much hive, and they're easily influenced by the media. Much more easily. All voters are influenced by the media still. That's true. But Democrats have a more erratic movements based on the news cycle. All right. I'm not making a derogatory statement here. I'm making a statement of fact. All right. Anyway, still, economy and border security have been holding kind of firm in that third to fourth place area. It has dipped somewhat, but we're still looking at around 8% and the third place issue. If you were to combine cost of living and inflation with economy and jobs as like purely economic issues, you're at about 48%. Not about, you're at it on the money. 48%. So roughly half of the country would say that they're voting on an economic issue. That's a bad sign for Democrats, by the way. And the third issue, immigration and border security. So it's interesting. I had seen that comment and I just wanted to remark on it because Steve keeps saying inflation and immigration. And I got to tell you, there's some truth to that. We don't talk about immigration as much, yet it still persists in this range. And I find that noteworthy. All right. Election integrity now is even higher, 6%. Healthcare, 5.3. Policing and crime, 4.6. Environment and climate change, 4.4. Coronavirus vaccinations and mandates is now down to 4.3%. That is it. Foreign policy, the issue du jour is gone, 3.6%. Gun rights, Second Amendment, 2.9%. Public education, critical race theory, 2%. Other write-in required, which locals, I'm going to show you, created a little thing for it, 2.9 to collaborate all these issues. Honestly, some of these 74 people cited issues that you could have chose one of the ones we offered. So, it is what it is. But, the general idea is that there is some truth, I think, to what Steve said. Also, that's only offering people to pick their first choice, and that's it. If you were to review choice distribution, right, what you'll find is that issues like education and election integrity will be higher in the scoring, the rank score, because more people rank them as like 2 and 3 than some of these other issues. So what maybe looks like a closer to number 1 issue would actually have a much lower rank distribution score because they're not cited as the second and third issues as much as some of these other issues. And this is another reason why, by the way, I've been looking at something like Crunch, because I would like to continue to do that and show that to you. But with the tools with MarketSite right now, I'm not able to show you a rank distribution score in a way that really makes sense, that's publicly digestible, like I can on the survey software, and Crunch can do as well, but that's not weighted, that's pre-weighted. All right, so stop sharing that. I just wanted to show that. Let's get into, and my little buddy is screaming bloody hell. Let's get into some of these more details about Roe v. Wade, which I just want to go over again real quick with a little bit more detail, okay? The truth is, American voters have no idea what Roe v. Wade does, all right? There are a lot of voters who say they oppose overturning Roe v. Wade, yet still oppose abortion within periods and trimesters, stages of development that are protected by Roe. What we found is generally that people think Roe v. Wade generally prevents abortion from being like wholesale outlawed. And that's not what Roe v. Wade does. All right. And in fact, subsequent cases, right? You had Casey, which was Pennsylvania. I actually, there was one provision that I actually liked, which was father, notification of the father of the child. I guess we have no rights as men to know whether or not a baby that belongs to us, will be aborted. I think that's travesty because it promotes fatherlessness. That's number one. It promotes being a deadbeat. It promotes being a failure as a man. And I'm not about it. So what can I tell you? All right. So abortion designation, we found pro-choice and pro-life actually very close this month again. For those who haven't seen it, 46% were pro-choice, 44% were pro-life. That's only about a 1-point increase from the high on the year. These two are constantly trading off, and anybody who finds otherwise is obviously, what I would call their samples are too metro. All right, but look at how many people who are pro-choice start to oppose different areas. This is the first trimester. After a heartbeat has been detected by the doctor, do you support or oppose abortion being legal during each of the following stages? This is the first trimester, and yet a quarter of pro-choice voters say in the first trimester, when the heartbeat is detected, it's too late. It's too late. That, and by the way, 22.6% were undecided. That's amazing to me. And you're going to see that across the board, where you will not see that with pro-life. 6.4% only have no opinion. Do you support or oppose abortion being legal after a doctor's determine a baby can feel pain in this second trimester? You start to see the numbers climb. Pro-choice, now we have 41.4% of voters who claim to be pro-choice, saying they oppose abortion in the second trimester after a doctor determines that the baby has neuroreactions. 35.2% still support it. You'll notice 23.4% of pro-choice voters, for some reason, say they have no idea. Yet only 4.5% of pro-life voters have no opinion or are unsure. All right. And for those who are unsure or have no opinion, you will notice for the almost 11%, when we asked if they were pro-choice or pro-life, there was about 10.6%, almost 11%, who said they were unsure and had no opinion about it. I don't know whether I'm pro-choice or pro-life. They're pro-life. End of story. Look at them, 7.8%. Only less than 8% support abortion in the first trimester after the heartbeat has been detected. That's it. 36% of voters who had refused to give a designation oppose it. 46% of voters who were unsure. Oppose in the second trimester after doctors determined babies can feel pain. Only, again, 7.8% supported it. Now we get to the goodies, which is the heart of the Democratic case that Republicans need to grow a pair to destroy. Protecting Roe is about protecting unfettered abortion. Roe protects up into periods of the second trimester. That's what Roe v. Wade does, and expansions on it do. All right? And yet people don't seem to understand that. But Democrats have been relying on this lie for a long time. Decades of lying to the public about what it is they really support or oppose regarding abortion. Hardcore pro-lifers, 26%, which doesn't surprise me, and I'm going to tell you why. 26% still support abortion, late-stage abortion, in the third and final trimester, the last 3 months of a pregnancy. 58%, a big majority, a significant majority, of self-described pro-choice voters oppose late-term abortion. There is a massive consensus in this country, ladies and gentlemen. Abortion should be off limits in the second trimester. And an even bigger, I would say a significant majority, short of a super, but 6 in 10, say abortion should in fact be illegal in the second trimester, which, by the way, is like most Western countries. There are even horrid, corrupt oligarchies that have more restrictions on abortion than we do. Why? Because they just view it as barbaric. Even authoritarian regimes view it as barbaric. 70.2%, an overwhelming, more than supermajority, say abortion should be illegal in the third trimester. Why did I say this 26% doesn't surprise me? Look who it is. Here's pro-choice by gender. 28.8% of men and 23.5% of females. Here's the horrible, dirty truth. This group of people, you would be surprised how many didn't just have one abortion, didn't just have 2 abortions, had 3 or more abortions. They cite issues like, I don't want to destroy my body. A baby would kind of interrupt my life right now. A baby would be a burden, not a financial one. No. Just my burden. The truth is, most abortions, it's true that black females commit most abortions by percentage than anybody, any other demographic in the country. But white women in their 20s are not that far behind. You know what the difference is? Black women actually cite economic reasons. So here you have white women using abortion as contraception and using black women to cover for them using abortion as contraception, using the economic plight of black women to cover for their right to have multiple abortions. That's the ugly truth about abortion. And by the way, when you hear a white woman on cable news frantically foaming at the mouth about Roe v. Wade, bringing up black and brown women, know she is totally full of crap. Hispanic women are among the least likely to have an abortion in this country, as are other minority, non-white, non-Hispanic women. They're the least likely, followed by Hispanic women. The overwhelming percentage of abortions conducted in this country on an annual basis are from economically challenged black women and inconvenienced white women. And honestly, the numbers are worse than we even know, because we have big blue states who refuse to participate in the CDC abortion surveillance program. They don't think you have a right to know how many pregnancies they terminate in this country every year. And by the way, the abortion ratio in the last year we have surveillance statistics was 2 out of 10. Every 10 pregnancies in this country, for every 10, 2 will result in an abortion. That's the abortion ratio in this country. Laura looks like she wants to punch through a wall. That is not because of economic plights, economic grievances, economic challenges, economic hurdles, economic obstacles. That is because there is a segment of this population that feels it's okay to be completely irresponsible with their sexual behavior because they can just terminate the pregnancy.
I also did say that misinformation is pumped out far more than the truth. And your poll shows that.
Constantly.
Because when you have all the details in front of you.
Is it on here actually as far as, this is what I wanted to go through. Right. Remember Roe, overturning Roe? And we've been finding stuff like this for years. But at first, overturning Roe looked to be, opposed about, 50 something to 30 something or 40%. There was we found a much higher percentage of support for overturning Roe. Actually, we did. But then when you deliver this to people and ask them, kind of like, the fake informed ballots that we keep seeing for elections. That's not the point of an informed ballot. Stop fudging polls, Remington Research. They're horrified. Like, wait a minute. No, I don't support Roe v. Wade. Then I do support the right to abortion, but not what Roe v. Wade protects. I didn't know that. And now I'm changing it because actually it was very close. Very close. But of the people who oppose overturning Roe v. Wade, 73%, obviously, the vast majority being pro-choice, 56.5%, less than a majority, supported allowing abortion after a heartbeat has been detected in the first trimester. A full third of people who oppose overturning Roe v. Wade told us that they oppose abortion after a heartbeat has been detected in the first trimester. Look at the numbers climb as we go. Only 30.6% support allowing abortion. This is Roe. In the second trimester, after doctors determine babies can feel pain. This is Roe. Right here. Let me move the arrow big enough so you guys can see it. This is Roe. This is what Roe protects. And yet, 47.2% of voters who supposedly oppose overturning Roe v. Wade still support the restrictions on abortion in the second trimester. They don't know what Roe does. 63% of voters who say they oppose overturning Roe, 63 oppose late-term abortion. And again, go through the crosstabs. Check it out. You will see that it is male liberal men who support abortion all these stages at much higher rates in many cases than women. Even pro-choice women. Even pro-choice women. And I think Frank, from quite frankly, when we were talking about this yesterday, I think he made a hell of an observation, which is that simply it's hard to overcome the natural instinct of a woman to protect a pregnancy after a certain period in time. And I really do believe no matter what progressives think they can do to turn nature upside down, you can't. It's genetic. The maternal instinct is there. It's built within you, ladies. Most. And I'm not really sure there's much that could do about it. And Tony, I did bring that up, actually. The report that was in the AP about the machines. I don't want to talk too much about machines, for obvious reasons. But, I did bring that up earlier. rewind the clock. Seriously, because it was a common attack by Democrats before 2020. It was a common attack. Even Barack Obama cast doubt on whether or not you could trust him. He did. He said Mitt Romney's family had too many ties to the people who supply them. You remember? But yeah, let's take a look at because we are almost 15 minutes out. Let's take a look at the margin. It's more than, we're going to look at more than just the margin. Okay. I want to tell you the variables, the weighting variables, because they differ from midterm variables. All right. We polled all of registered voters. The generic ballot result is a different weighting variable. It's a likely midterm voter demographic. All right, based on the voter demographics and the likely voter model. The 2020 is, presidential electorate. And I want to show you too, where is before I pull it up, vote issue. I was making this new crosstab, so I don't have all of the demographics made that I want to make. But basically, where are we here? There are definitely some that I don't want to miss out on. 2020 voter, for instance. Did you vote in 2020? Okay, great. If you voted in 2020, would you vote now? All right. And there's party, there's ideology. It's been doing this crazy thing. Doesn't want to. Oh, for Pete's sake. An error has occurred. Of course it has. Get rid of you. Save it again. And what did I just say? The 2020 vote. Let's just leave that up, because if it's going to give me a problem until I can figure it out, let's just do this. All right. First and foremost, before I bring this up, when waiting for a presidential electorate and whether or not they're likely to vote, there are different responses. It is slightly different regionally. So, for instance, the Northeast is a little bit higher than in a midterm electorate. It's about 20.2%. The Midwest, about 23.6%. The South is less, 34.7%. And the West made up 21.5%. It is less rural. Urban, 27.7%. Suburban, about even same actually, 52.2%. The difference is that there will be more urban voters than rural voters, okay? And 20.1% rural, which is less than the midterm, which was about 23. All of this matters, trust me. High school or less, about 26.2%. Some college or an associate degree, 34.6%. A 4-year degree, 13.8%. And a post-grad, it's higher, 15.4%. Why? Because they're just people who would say, I'm going to vote here, but I'm not going to vote there. All right. It is a little bit less conservative, but still actually was shockingly conservative to me. I was a little bit surprised. Liberal, 24.5, which is up almost 3 full points from a midterm electorate. Moderate, 38.4. Conservative, 37.1. It's less male, 46.7, as opposed to 47.7. And female is 53.3. It's older. All right, midterm electorate projecting right now to be about 13%, 18 to 29. I may be wrong about that. It may be less, but I'm trying to be fair. 15.5%, about 16%. 30 to 44, 24.7. 45 to 64 was 37.5. 65 plus was 22.3. It's less white. It's 70.8. African Americans actually held a bit steady, 11.5, went up a little bit. So it would be about 12%. Hispanic and Latino, about 11, 10.9. I think that's about the same. Asian, 4.5. Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander, I'm giving you details here, 0.2. American Indian Alaskan Native, 0.9. And all other races, about 1.2. So you would basically have 0.7, 0.9, 6.8%, almost 7%, which would be a record high, I think, being Asian other. I'd have to look at that. It may have been 8 at one point. But white voters would be a little less. Hispanics are yet to like flex their presidential election muscles. They have a lot more in the tank here that they are not spending. They are a larger share than African Americans, and yet they still continue to vote at lower rates, and that is hurting their representation. Okay, and this is it. Here's the Trump versus Biden. Okay, this is with leaners. You can see there's 11% is third party. We have Biden struggling to get to 40%, 38.9%, even though it's a D+3 electorate. I may do a couple of things with the likely voter. I'm showing this on purpose. 45.7% for Donald Trump. That's because he's just doing so much better. Look at the 2020 vote, yes or no. This is important. Okay? Among those who did not vote in 2020 and could be potential new voters, it actually even might be a little bit high, which would be worse for Joe Biden. Okay? Donald Trump takes 47.1%. Joe Biden takes 40.2%. And when I get done doing a little bit more of the vote history, that may help push Biden up a little bit. But as of right now, this is an electorate that told us they voted 51-46 for Joe Biden, which is really close to the overall result. It was about 51-47, with the rest being third-party candidates. So with a 51-46 self-report rate among these voters, who did you vote for? They are now going 47-40 for Joe Biden. So Trump ticked up a little bit from the 2020 electorate. And actually, it's 45, 51-45. Okay. So he ticked up 2 points, and Joe Biden fell 11. That's a 13-point swing. That is actually rather consistent with what we have been finding with his approval rating all across the board. That's what we found, by the way, with Virginia. Same thing, about a 13-point swing. That's what we've been finding. New Jersey had areas that were actually higher. In California, again, if David wins that race next Tuesday, he will have a shot to take California 13. But if Kevin McCarthy's donor candidate wins it, they will lose it. Because it is not generic. It's not like, that Republican is not capable of running a race like Glenn Youngkin. That Republican's not capable of running a race like Ron DeSantis. He's not because look, regardless of all of the wedges they tried to drive between Trump and Youngkin, Trump endorsed him, and Youngkin did have he just sold it better than Trump. Or at least he sold it more moderate for Virginia, which is better for Virginia. But he nevertheless had a very Trumpy message. You got to deliver it differently in the Old Dominion than you can in, say, the Sunshine State or the Buckeye State. And by the way, I saw a lot of questions about polls. You may remember the video about that poll with Suffolk University, and I believe it was USA Today. They had McAuliffe +1 in Virginia. We absolutely nailed the electorate and showed why they had McAuliffe +1, which was wrong, was incorrect. They have J.D. Vance up over Tim Ryan, like 42-39. It was completely conducted through live caller. I'm saying live caller is useless in Ohio, which I did the video comparing our polling versus Fox News's poll. They had a Biden +5 or 3 or something ridiculous. The same time we were in the field and had a Trump +10, right? Or maybe it was even +8. And I was showing you with weighting variables how badly I had to manipulate the data to get Biden within 4 points. That is because it's not that voters in Ohio have a big social bias. Compared to other battleground states, they really don't. They don't care who the hell you are. They'll tell you they're going to vote for Donald Trump and hang up the phone on you. They don't care if you're offended by that. But you will not reach the Trump voter through live caller. Period. End of story. You will not reach south of Toledo. You will not reach the Trump voter in Mahoning County. in Trumbull County, where, Mahoning, where Youngstown is, Tim Ryan's base, you may think that Tim Ryan is actually doing rather well there, when in all reality, J.D. Vance is likely to beat Tim Ryan in his own county. You're definitely not going to find him to the west in Wood. You're not going to. You're not going to reach them in southeastern Ohio. That's not going to happen. They don't like live caller polling. And after 2016, I learned my damn lesson. They will oversample not just college-educated whites, because look at how badly they blew the election with Vance. They completely underpredicted Vance's underestimated Vance's strength. They completely missed it. It's not only that they'll oversample college-educated voters, and they're missing so many non-college whites, working whites, some college associate degree whites. They're missing so many of them. So even if you think you got some on the phone, it's not good enough. It's not accurate. It's not going to accurately represent that entire subgroup. So you will, let's say, underestimate J.D. Vance's support among working non-college whites. Well, that's it. That's the whole ball game. That's how you get a Biden +4, Quinnipiac in Ohio. That's how you get a Biden +3 or 5 or whatever Fox News had. That's how you get a Biden +1, which is what Nate Cohen at the New York Times had. It's not the way to reach these people. So just keep that in mind. I would like to pull the Ohio Senate race. I would. We'll see how that goes. But that's an interesting race for us to take a look at. And I would also like to pull the Arizona Republican primary for U.S. Senate. Of course, I would throw in the governor's election and everything. And I was talking with Todd Wood from CD Media, and he may want to do that together. So that would be cool. Because I would very much like to see what's going on over there. We were close in Arizona last time, much closer than everybody else. Even though we had it leaning to Trump by about 2 points, we were much closer than everybody else. And I still think, by the way, I was right. So in any event, Trump is doing better with the 2020. Both of them are doing better with the 2020 voter. And interestingly, they're both doing about, he's 1.4% better among the 2020. Biden's 1.3% better among the 2020, with 9.3% saying they would go for the third party. What is this made up of? A lot of it's made up of Joe Biden's independence. If they didn't change their mind and break for Donald Trump, which they're doing now again by a 20-point margin, if they didn't, then they went to third party. They won't vote for Joe. The potential new voter is a better, how could I put this? The potential new voter in 2024 is a better group for Joe Biden than it is for Donald Trump. But the turnout increase we saw from 2016 to 2020 is unheard of. That electorate size is unheard of. We've never seen it before. Will we duplicate that in 2024? I don't know. And I think that's one of the main questions pollsters are going to have to ask. As of right now, these voters are much less likely to vote. And currently we have them a little over 10% of the overall sample. I mean, a little under 10% of the overall sample. About 8. So, it's interesting. This is another major problem for Joe Biden. Rasmussen is also finding this. Women are basically even. When they break, which they will, they'll break to Joe Biden. And he'll probably tie him up or carry him evenly. All right. Or he'll either tie him up or he'll carry him by a point or two. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is doing so much better with men. That's problematic because the last time we saw a Republican do this well with men on a presidential ballot against a Democratic candidate actually did it. First of all, we haven't seen it in forever. Mitt Romney, John McCain, George Bush even. We have not seen these kinds of numbers for a Republican candidate. We did, however, see it for Poppy Bush, and he wound up losing women to the caucus by only about 2 points. Ronald Reagan is the last one. That's what kind of a problem Joe Biden and Democrats have right now. It doesn't get any better for Hillary Clinton, ladies and gentlemen. It does not. Bernie Sanders, it does not. Pete Buttigieg is not even competitive. Elizabeth Warren is not supported. Kamala Harris, we'll show it. We'll be releasing all of it, but I imagine that it probably will get a little bit closer to these numbers. I think once there are leaners here right now in it, but once this likely voter model is completely in play, because I'm playing around with it to show you the difference, we're probably looking at 47-40, something like that. Very close to the 28-20 electorate. Maybe Joe Biden falls a little bit shy of it. He's at like 39.5. That wouldn't surprise me. But none of the other Democratic candidates are polling as well as Joe Biden. And that says something. The rest of them are mired at like 36, 37%. Laura's laughing. Yeah, I mean, that's where we're at. It's a catastrophe for Democrats. And the Democratic voter, I had quote tweeted somebody on Twitter. He is a Democrat. But I quote tweeted him because he's right. And let me see if I can find it without going back to my feed. He was right. And I think what he's saying is worth Democrats paying attention. Here it is. All right. This guy, Andy Ostroy, he's verified on Twitter. He said, reality, Biden will be 82 in 24, and he may not run. Biden is wildly unpopular. Harris was an awful candidate with virtually zero support. If Biden doesn't run, Democrats desperately need an Obama-like inspirational candidate who can appeal to both sides. And then he says, I live in the real world. He's absolutely right. And I'm telling you right now, Democrats do not think that candidate is Pete Buttigieg. They don't think that candidate is Elizabeth Warren. And they don't even think that candidate is Bernie Sanders. Because you have these massive buildups after you get away from Biden. You have these massive buildups of Democrats saying, I would vote third party. They're done. They want new blood. And I have to say, part of that to me is a little bit ironic because of that old, will they declare their independence from the media question that they had to answer in 2020, which they answered loud and clear, which is that no, they still listen to who the party bosses in the media, they still listen to their advice, who to vote for. That's where it's at. Right? So I don't know who that new candidate could be. I'm willing to add Michelle Obama. Someone else suggested Gavin Newsom. I think at this point, we may as well just drop Pete Buttigieg. We may as well this is now the second or third time, Laura, that we've polled Pete Buttigieg. We did so not for the Public Polling Project. It's the first time we did. But Pete Buttigieg was at 34% the last time we polled him. He's probably going to end up somewhere around there. He's just not competitive. Even Democrats are like, somebody else, please. Is Michelle Obama that someone else? I am skeptical. Even if her poll numbers are higher now. I'll do it, but I am skeptical that she could hold on to that under scrutiny and when people get to know her. Just like I was about Hillary Clinton. I don't know. We'll see. Is it Gavin Newsom? I mean, Andrew Cuomo would have been somebody good to put in there, but he's down now. I mean, he's been taken out. Scandals took him out. So I don't know. Andrew Cuomo's that's not viable anymore. So it's 2:00. We'll get ready to kick rocks here. Locals, get ready for this crosstab and keep an eye out because we're going to put others in there as well. Suggestions. I'm open to suggestions. I have no problem the next round doing Michelle Obama and Gavin Newsom. I have no problem doing that. But, I mean, anyway, yeah, I'd like others though, because I don't have very much faith in them being an incredibly powerful I just don't. The problem all of these candidates are going to have is that people can look back and remember what it was like under Donald Trump. Yeah, the vote was rocky, but economically, they're doing this comparison in their minds. And Twitter's not real life. So, you see the anti-Trump DeSantis crowd. It's not real life. There's no evidence of that in the polling. I'm sorry. There's not. There's not. We could, too, start adding Republican nomination questions soon. Once the midterms definitely start to turn the corner, then that's the soup of the day, man. I mean, absolutely. And we can track that for almost, a year before we get into it. But right now, I'm telling you, it's just not, there's no point. Nobody else. Gavin Newsom's been on the stage, so it's like very different. He's been on the stage for a while. So, it may be different. Or it may turn up that he's got no support either. I don't know. But again, shoot those suggestions over. Leave them in the comments. I'll read them after we're done, and we'll go from there. But it's 2:02. I'm going to kick rocks. What's up? Oh, okay. Did I miss something?
Yeah.
Oof, that's a good question. How big of an electoral victory can Trump get in 2024? Is 330 plus electoral votes plausible? Yeah. Because if there are margins like that, then you're looking at states like Minnesota, New Hampshire, they'd go. I'm dubious on New Mexico. I would have to see we all see the Hispanic vote shift. We do. The problem is it would have to shift more than it has already. Here's why. The whites in states like Colorado and New Mexico, especially New Mexico. Number one, the remaining conservative white voter is just not enough. Yeah, places like Albuquerque where there are a lot of yuppies. Or like the modern WASP, whatever you want to call them. The wokester. Same thing with Colorado because you have Denver and Boulder and stuff like that. So, I think it is somewhat limited no matter how big a popular vote victory would be for a Republican candidate. I still think it's somewhat limited because, yeah, Wisconsin's going to fall, Michigan's going to fall, Pennsylvania's going to fall. Iowa is not competitive. Ohio with Trump, it's not competitive. Neither is Ohio. Florida is not competitive. Georgia would definitely flip back. We just polled Georgia. Arizona, that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen, because the Hispanic shift is enough to push Arizona back. There's no white population growth there. It slowed down after the insurgents. Unless Governor Ducey wants to continue to be an idiot and build, like professional service economies out there. It could be like Governor Cooper in North Carolina and drop an Apple plan. That would be moronic. Or like, Governor Brian Kemp to open his arms to Hollywood. That's incredibly stupid. But, money is all you care about. You may think it's smart, but politically it's dumb, and economics is politics. So, you really are looking around at places, though, obviously in Maine. If there was a big enough push, I still believe wholeheartedly in Connecticut, they are not as liberal as you would think. They're not. It's hard to break long-term voting histories without effort, and there's been no effort. So you would be looking at states like that. It can be, though, rather unpredictable when you have a president who's this unpopular. When you have a president who's unpopular in a state like Oregon, results can be very unpredictable. So we'll just have to watch. As I say, not on my watch. I said I'm in Ohio, and I can attest to what Rich is saying. Down to earth people with common sense outside of the cities, they're not taking those surveys. They're not. They don't. I know they don't. They just don't like it. It's not a matter of even a social bias. It's just they think you're the enemy. They don't have time. And they don't prefer it. They would much rather you text them or shoot them an email, So, all right, that's where it's at. So, yeah, it's 2:06. I'm going to go do some work on these crosstabs, send out some other polling text messages I got to do. We got quite a little bit to do today, but that's great. As far as Rhea Fanning points 2.0, how is Blake Masters doing in Arizona? I tend to think that Fabrizio is right and others are wrong. But that's why I told Todd Wood, let's get in the field in Arizona. You want to do something, let's get in the field in Arizona. Why? Because there's a Senate race there that's a lot of interest, but also because I have a feeling that they are just wrong in Arizona and that Fabrizio is right. That Blake Masters probably does have a lead now. I'd like to see it though. But I feel like Arizona is not Georgia, and it's going to follow, especially in a primary like this. It probably will follow the trend we've seen in other places, because Republicans in Arizona are base, folks, except for the northern area where the McCain family has still had influence. It's a basey area. All right. So we're going to wrap it up. All right. So don't forget, if you like the video, give it a like on YouTube. Definitely subscribe, hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. All right. You can follow me on Twitter at People's Pundit. You can follow me still on Getter at People's_Pundit, but definitely sign up at Rumble, at People's Pundit Rumble channel, and where you will find the link to right there, peoplespundit.locals.com. The public polling project's up. If you want to contribute and share it far and wide, it's bigdatapoll.com/public polling project. That will redirect you to the actual page. All right. And check out the merchandise. Mm-hmm. Those of you who got the merch, shoot us a picture.
So
all right,
I got Owen's picture.
Yeah, we got like Owen, and I got another one too. I have another person. Yeah, so it's just not enough though. We need a collage of you guys, and I know you got it out there. Because you don't have to show your face; just show parts of you to make it out like people know you're a real person. So if you don't want to show your face, that's cool. I get it. And
I'll blur out
we can. Well, no, that'll kill the commercial, but we can crop you. But yeah, we're trying to put together this cool little commercial thing. And you're killing us, Smalls. You're killing us. All right. With that in mind, I don't think I missed anything.
You can
on
follow
Friday.
The greatest producer at Getter.
Of course.
At Laura Barris.
You can follow the greatest producer ever at Laura Barris on Getter. And on Friday, don't miss it. We'll have Don, as always, do a Q&A and a lot more data to go over. All right. All right. So with that, as always, thank you, folks, for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. We'll see you back on Friday, noon Eastern Standard Time. Don't miss it. Deuces.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love just for a little fun? I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show